launching all these programs for Acamus, I deal with a lot of different PD coordinators. And I was just, having a conversation with two of them about a program we're doing for Acamus. And it's amazing to me how much time they invest in other people's professional development, but get so little time for themselves. And the fact that they were joining this course that I was delivering really kind of blew me away, because it really shows that investment with the teams and the work that they do, and that they themselves, they want to experience what their team members are experiencing so that they can continue to reinforce it. But yeah, in that conversation, like you and I have had so many times, where do we go for inspiration, program development? And that's really what's driving today's live session. And for the next 10 minutes, what I would really like to kind of glean from you, how do we help those in our roles that are the training coordinators?
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. In a lot of ways, while we're organizing the professional learning for our schools and our teams and our staff, it's really important not to forget ourselves. And I've had school leaders who always made sure that it was a priority that I included myself in trainings, and that was always helpful. One of the things that I've found really helpful is to develop a personal or a professional learning network, a PLN. Share information, share strategies, share connections, join with another school for bringing in presenters, or even just like you and I do so often, just talk and brainstorm and strategize. That's probably one of my strongest personal professional learning providers is my own network.
Now between you and I, we do a really good job staying in touch, and we do a really good job, like just kind of sharing ideas and practice and bringing other people into the conversation. But one of the things I've noticed, like being Acamus's contracted PD coordinator and also working with schools outside of Acamus, is that there's very few people like you that are full-time. Often it's a role that's delegated to individuals or committee. So how do we find like-minded people? I mean, do you have any sort of tips for helping find the other Renees?
The other Renees, or like you said, the other part-time Renees. Join as many of the regional networks as you can. If you think of professional learning as internal, your school-driven professional learning, external, the PD provided by other providers, other experts. Then there's also the network connections. And so whether it's through Acamus schools or IRCO schools or IB schools or Japan Council of International Schools, most regions have these networks, and you can connect with curriculum coordinators, or sometimes I even connect with the heads to see what other schools are doing. It really depends whoever in a school is in a similar role, or at least has similar responsibilities. Those are the people you want to connect with, whether they have the same title or not.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously the answer here, and I think something that you and I do a really good job at, is you just got to be social. You got to be willing to reach out and identify people with similar responsibilities and say, hey, would you mind bouncing a few balls off the wall with me? So.
Yeah. So many people know me by email.
And it's unfortunate because here we are in international schools, and at this particular time, and another reason why I kind of raised this auspiciousness of having this conversation, you and I would normally meet at conferences or in workshops.
Yep.
But we're relegated now to literally having to take that extra step to just connecting with each other online and reaching out to each other. Whereas, in past years, we could have taken it for granted to meet each other in a conference or be pulled together somewhere.
In a lot of ways, though, and I mean, I think some families have even found there's been benefits that we've remembered or relearned how to connect with people in ways that were always here. We could always Skype with each other or connect. It's just a matter of it was convenient to do it face to face, so we did, and now we can't. So we've got other means. So
I guess one last final tip for us before we kind of move on to two more suggestions you have is that we're prevented from being able to meet face to face. So we're going to have to be a little bit more creative in terms of reaching out to other people in schools, maybe people we know, and say, hey, do you have a PD coordinator there? Because I'd like to include them in my network, or like you said, reaching out to a head of school. And for a lot of people to email another head of school, they might feel like a little, I don't know, am I allowed to do that?
Sure. Or work through your own head. Sometimes the connection is made that way.
Yeah, and then so there's lots of different ways you go about it. So don't use the fact that you don't know who that person is as an obstacle. Find people who might, and then connect through them. Now, tip number 2, you shared with me earlier, that was all about school-driven topics.
School-driven topics. So what I've found successful in my school here in Japan, but also my school in China, and even my school in the US, we did this. We created our own learning community around topics that we wanted to mutually explore. So whether you call it a professional learning community or just a learning community with a goal. In one school, we were working on raising our ACT scores. So we all got together and we had a common goal, and we did different research projects, and we came together and shared resources. In China, we were working on our evaluation model. So we got professional readings, and we were our own PD. But it was a school-driven topic, and everybody was an expert in their own right. And then we looked for external resources to support us.
Yeah. So, I mean, thinking about that, that's job embedded learning. Some of the most effective learning in schools is going to be job embedded learning. And that's something you and I and Dan Brown from Singapore, St. Joseph's, are going to be talking about next week in our improving internal professional development. I should say the course begins next week, but we get online, I think, September 22nd. So the important thing to think about that is job embedded learning. And that's probably the most critical thing someone like you can bring to a school, is getting them focused around those topics.
Yeah, and it's never flash in the pan. It's never a one-time conversation. If you really want to learn and make a change happen, it's got to be strategic. You need to, the school needs to know where it's headed. There needs to be more people on board. I could never drive a change by myself. I need the support of a team, and we need to all be headed in the same direction, or at least with a common understanding. And any of these school-driven internal conversations or learning groups that I've been a part of took the better part of a semester or even a year. The one we did on evaluation took us the majority of a year. We did role plays. We made videos of ourselves doing evaluation conversations and critiqued each other. It took a full year for us to improve how we did it.
An interesting thing, just in terms of how long I've known you too, is that being the professional development coordinator, when you're full-time in the role, you get to have a little extra say in terms of what the learning is going to be. So you could selfishly select school-related topics that you're personally interested in, correct?
It is. Yes. It's never been so that we've always been of a like mind. I've seldom found myself in a position where I didn't want to go where the school wanted to go. Yeah. So yes, I usually get my way, but we're all headed in the same direction anyway.
And that's what makes you such a great coordinator. But I would say in this particular sense too, that for PD coordinators or anybody that's arranging training, the training is going to be so much better if you want it as well.
Yes.
Right? Because now you're not just someone who's like, oh, I have to check a box. I want this to be really good learning because I'm going to be involved. And so therefore, I want to create a little professional learning community, maybe around, assessment, something I'm really passionate about. So even if you're not a full-time coordinator, choose topics that you're passionate about, because you're going to invest more energy and time in making sure it's great. So school-related topics, really important. Our last and final tip for everybody.
I know it for some people, it might be contentious or debatable, but conferences and workshops, we really have to look for the best opportunities for an expert to meet our needs. Whether it's a 3-day conference, whether it's a long-term workshop or something that's online. I saw an online workshop that will last an entire year that I might be able to volunteer a few of my colleagues to join me with. So yes, workshops and conferences have a place. And sometimes that's the best place for us to hear an expert's voice.
Yeah. And I'm just going to connect the dots here, because one of the things you talked about is professional network and how important it is to get out of your own school to meet like-minded people so that you can broaden your own perspective in terms of what great professional development is. Now, if you want to make an argument for that and say, hey, to your head of school or a principal or somebody else, can you help introduce me? You're asking of them their time and their energy to do so. So you have to make it related to something important to them. All right, let's look at school topics. Well, hey, I'm really interested in evaluation and I want to pursue this. And I would really like to meet like-minded people in other schools. Can you help connect some dots for me? Yeah, for sure. That's part of our strategic plan. Let's do it. And then, hey, by the way, I think there's a great way that I can probably get a quick sort of step up on meeting people, because there just happens to be this online program or this conference happening where I can network with people. And my goal for this is not just to get exposure to the speaker or the content, but to take away relationships that can drive the process of learning that I want to continue to do through the year, because then I can stay in touch with them and say, hey, what are you guys doing? What have you learned from this?
Yeah, and I'll add to that, not only stay in touch with the person, but you can bring that learning back to your school. So if it is the strategic direction to work on assessment, if that's the topic or the theme for a group, then going away to that workshop, you bring all that knowledge back to the school. And if you're a trained presenter, or if you've got that voice in the school, you can even not replicate, but you can reiterate those lessons and that learning throughout the year to the people in your school and to different committees and teams.
Yeah. So to close it out, I want to build my network. I want to pursue a particular topic that I'm passionate about. I need support. I need to manage up now. I need the head of school, or I need some decision maker to make sure this happens. So I need to sell it to them in the sense that, hey, this is an aligned interest. And this is how I'm going to take advantage of this interest. Not only am I going to go out and get the information we need and bring it back to the school, but I'm going to present it. And then to continue this development, I'm going to stay in touch with the people at that conference to see how they're developing. So I have a benchmark to see what progress is like, so that we can continue to improve this initiative and make it happen. And, bring it back full circle. I'm maintaining my network.
Yep.
So
beautiful summary.
Awesome. Renee, that was all you, by the way. I just was a really good listener because you were telling me things that are like music to my ears. I want to thank you again for that. And for everybody that, joining us or going to be watching the replay, join Renee, myself, and Dan Brown when we do ACAMUS's Improving Internal Professional Development. I'm going to include a link right here for this post for you to find us. We're going to love to have you there. This is a great opportunity to work with. I think we already have like 10 or 11 schools participating, close to 20 people, 21 professional coordinators. So anybody that wants to really network and build their